In the beginning, by the sixth day morning, the whole creation was given birth. And then God made man and give him dominion over every living creature on the earth. Tragedy in the garden, we all know it happened. Shamefully banished from Eden, we witness the first paradise lost. And since then it's Mother Earth who end up paying the cost. That's why I'm begging, Mother Earth is crying. She said to stop the polluting. Boy, boy, boy. Mother Earth is dying. We got to stop the polluting. Boy, boy, boy. Whole attitude got to change and priorities rearrange. We got to become more competent the way we protect the environment and fight for all that it's worth. Fight to save Mother Earth. Boy, 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 Mother Earth crying. Boy, in case you don't know, the planet Earth dying slow. What a sad way to go. Right? Get it. The ozone layers depleted, endless factories belching tons of pollutants in the atmosphere. Rivers and seas can't escape on Mother Earth. We constantly commit rape, the evil planet to strip the Amazon there. Acid rain on the nation, species hunting to extinction. A roller coaster ride to self-destruction. Stop mankind from digging a certain grave. We got to get together. It's Mother Earth we must save. That's why I'm pleading. Mother Earth is crying. She said to stop the polluting. Boy, boy, boy. Mother Earth is crying. We got to stop the polluting. Boy, boy, boy. Whole attitude got to change and priorities rearrange. We got to become more competent the way we protect the environment and fight for all that it's worth. Fight to save Mother Earth. Boy, 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 Mother Earth crying. Boy, in case you don't know, the planet Earth dying slow. What a sad way to go. Oh yeah. Massive global warning with the sea level rising, islands and countries like Holland may be no more. As natural resources deplete, people can't find food to eat. Famine for both rich and poor. Impossible you might think, but we tottering on the brink. Next thing you know, we become extinct. the cancer we create a motherhood soul, and she's going to give up the ghost when she can't take no more, no more. Gotta be God. Mother Earth is crying. She said to stop the pollution. Holy, holy, holy. Mother Earth is crying. We got to stop the polluting. Holy, holy, holy. Whole attitude got to change and priorities rearrange. We got to become more competent. The way we protect the environment and fight. Fight for all that it's worth. Fight to save motherhood. Holy, 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 motherhood crying. Holy, in case you don't know, the planet is dying slow. What a sad way to go. Today the things we know could determine the future, and pray what will the picture be. See grandson and granddaughter fighting chaos and disaster as motherhood protests violently. Wake up people, and be part of the struggle. The planet Earth in serious trouble. We got to end this melancholy refrain. We cannot afford to lose paradise again. That's why I'm pleading. Mother Earth is crying. She said to stop the polluting. Holy, holy, holy. Mother Earth is dying. We got to stop the polluting. Boy, boy, boy. Whole attitude got to change and priorities rearrange. We got to become more competent. The way we protect the environment and fight. Fight for all that is good. Fight to save motherhood. Boy, 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 motherhood crying. Boy, in case you don't know, the planet is dying slow. What a sad way to go. Right, give it. Sea level rising, boy, boy, it is only depleting, boy, boy, hey, 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 give it. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Today, when I look around in the world, what do I see? I see footprints that man have left on the sand while walking through times. I see fruits of our ambitions, figments of our imaginations. And I ask myself, when will it end? When will it end? It is plain to see, universally this land is not bountiful as it was. Simply because in his quest for success, nothing stands in man's way. All rivers run dry. Soon the birds will fly, the mountains will be no longer high. And when I really think of it, I just wonder why. Oh, why? I see charity deplored, equal rights totally ignored, wisdom and ingenuity working in accord, simply to afford such inventions as thermonuclear warfare and environmental warfare. And I wonder now, where do we go from here? Prophets everywhere gaze upon the horizon and declare that judgment will come as the savage hands of unscrupulous men pile everything pass by. Time is running out as we eat and drink, species at the brink of being extinct. And I think no one can deny that the price of progress is high, real high. I see consciousness as bait, as today we live recklessly. Money make egos inflate and thereby create a turbulent state. I see a struggle between the sexes, new hang-ups and old complexes. Now the question is, right in context, what shall be next? I've already seen this world have come divided between race, color, creed, and class. And some of the things the scripture predict truthfully come to pass. Soil that wouldn't bear children, making children to be a part of this growing mass. And I ask, if this is progress, how long will it last?
Oh, they said that I like identity politics. Well, identity means that which you identify with. And I tell you, God has given many gifts to the Caribbean. Many gifts. Michael holding rhythmical, running in from the boundary, poetry in motion, setting the world alight. Oroan Babel Al-Kanai, doing what others did, depositing a ball into outer space, but he did it on his back, the Indian becoming West Indian. Good evening and welcome to Politics 101. Give me a topic and I will find a calypso for you. That is what I mean when I say the calypso is the greatest genre of music in the world. The only musical genre that you can do that. You know the type of mood that I'm in tonight? The environment. The Baron before that, Mother Earth is crying. And King Austin, Progress. About 20 years ago, they did a poll of the greatest calypso of all time. And that calypso, Progress by King Austin, was voted as the greatest calypso of the 20th century. The profundity of the lyrics, speaking of the world to the world, as only we West Indians can do. Making sense of our reality, the men and women on the stage. Mother Earth is crying. Mother Earth is crying. Why do we hear Mother Earth when she's crying more than others hear her? Because we, from the Middle Passage through the plantation and the barrack yards to the present, we know what it is to cry. That is why we can hear when Mother Earth is crying, when others don't hear. We bring to the world both the burden of the world, but we force the world to acknowledge that burden. Mother Earth is crying. King Austin, the price of progress. We in Guyana today are grappling with progress. We know the price of progress in Guyana is 58% poverty. The price of progress is pollution. Mother Earth is crying. Mother Earth is dying. And we can see Mother Earth dying because we have been dying. Professor Orlando Patterson talked about social death. He said slavery caused social death. So we understand dying in a real way. The price of progress. The price of progress is the obscene accumulation of wealth by those whom we entrust with the destiny of our collective lives. Mother Earth is crying. Oh, we talk about the gas to shore pipeline. But are we talking about the environmental degradation that comes with reckless planning? I am not beyond bribing. My Friday night spin twin, I have neglected for 1 year. And so I had to search the vault of the calypso to find 2 calypsos to bribe you with. I'm talking about the former head of the Environmental Protection Agency, Dr. Vince Adams. He's here with us tonight, and my brother Takumo Gunsi is also joined us, and we are going to be speaking and talking and mobilizing and educating. Good evening and welcome to Politics 101. Everyone is talking about the farm. I saw my brother Glenn Lyle this morning berating us for talking about the farm. And he said, Exxon is going away with the ag. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the farm. And I like Glenn. And I got to go and see Glenn. We talk about the farm because the farm is in your face. Sometimes to get to what Exxon is doing, to get to the environment that they are killing, we have to go through something. The farm, at least for us on this program, is not the end in itself. The farm is the means to the end. It's not one or the other. Brother Bobby Seale, in a time gone by, Black Panther man, he said, seize the time. Seize the time. The farm is in the faces of Guyanese people. If that can wake our nation from its slumber, then it's worth talking about. Brother Takumo Gunse, Dr. Vince Adams, good evening and welcome, and neither of you is responsible for anything I said before. But Vincent, you are going to be responsible for Kanai falling on his backside and hitting the ball into outer space because you did it. You understood that contestation is not just inside the boundary, but beyond the boundary. And so, as men from far off places, men of old, returning offshore this time, when they were looking for El Dorado 400 years ago, they came inshore. This time they come back for El Dorado offshore. That is why CLR James said the action is not just in the boundary, but beyond the, and he didn't say beyond the boundary. He said beyond a boundary. Viv Richards taking a ball 2 yards from outside the off stump, which we used to call in your days crass slug.
Not bad.
And deposited with precision over square leg of our mid wicket. Only the West Indian could do that. We took the game that was meant to bring us in line, and we took that game to put ourselves out of line. I'm going to give you, Vincent, because you're a doctor too. Yes. Put Kanai hooking the ball from his backside in a larger Caribbean context.
Well, and thanks, Dr. Hinds'Sight. Nice seeing you again, brother Ogunsi.
Okay, and nice to meeting you. I think the first time we're meeting since the elections campaign.
Yes, a long time ago. So it's really a pleasure seeing you again, and welcome to our wonderful Friday night visitors. I didn't realize it was that long, Dr. Hines. It's been that long that we abandoned our, well, not abandoned, suspended, if you will.
Suspended, yes.
Our Friday night. But this beyond the boundary it has some significance and a parallel to this whole scandal with the president. And it's beyond the boundary of that 150 acres. Or no, what's interesting, the president is saying, well, no, it's half of it, except that he didn't say what the number is. You would think that if somebody is going to make a defense for themselves and say, well, it's much less, they would have said what that number is. So a couple of friends of mine decided to go, thanks to technology, a couple of friends of mine decided to go to geospatial technology by using satellite imagery, and one came up with 155 acres, not even 150, and the other one came up with 209. And all you got to do is put in. I mean, it's a very easy program if you can use it. So the president still needs to come out and show. But the whole point is, and we all love our good friend Glenn Lal, but I totally disagree with him here. This is not about Exxon. It's beyond the boundary of Exxon. It is within the boundary of leadership of the country. What is the what is the moral leadership? The leader of a country sets the tone for what that country will be. You cannot be, if a leader is going to be corrupt, the rest of the country, that's the standard. They will be corrupt. So it's beyond Exxon. Of course, Exxon is a piece of it. Yes, how you govern, but the way you govern Exxon is by the same principles that you're going to operate yourself within your farm or whatever it is. So this is way beyond the boundary in the context of what you're talking about here, Dr. Hein. Way beyond the boundary of this farm. The farm is just one of the symptoms of what we're seeing taking place in Guyana. But the bigger picture is, we know what it is. It's an indication of something that morality and corruption and so those basic fundamental principles and culture, because it's ingrained now. If a leader starts to do something, that becomes ingrained in the culture, and that's the direction that the country will be going. So it's way beyond the talking about making Exxon a priority compared to the farm. The farm is a symptom of the root cause of the problems that we are seeing in Guyana. If we cannot fix those fundamental principles, then the country is in trouble, regardless of Exxon or whoever else.
Brother Takumo, I can label you a radical because radicalism means getting to the roots. And you have not just been someone who has observed inside the boundary and beyond the boundary, but you've been a participant. You've been an activist. And you've seen the twists and turns of our experience from decolonization to the present. Why the country has erupted in a moral, and it's Doctor used the word moral, a moral revulsion against the discovery of this farm. Why, from your perspective?
I don't know if it is accurate to say that the country as a whole. I would say the opposition support base. I haven't seen, and I'm not saying...
Thanks to the correction.
I'm not seeing Indians, I'm saying half of the country.
Yes.
I think it is part and parcel of the nature of Guyanese politics. People are so disgusted, and they want this regime off their backs. And in the absence of no effective action that is signaling the days of the regime, are numbered. People then hold on to anything that helps to expose the regime. It is like a second best situation. And I think that Guyanese politics must have hooked into that politics and that psychological response to the fact that as an opposition, we haven't found an effective way to begin to ring the bell, of the departure of the PPP in the foreseeing future, as far as people are concerned. So I would say it is the people's genuine revulsion of PPP's rule and domination, but it is also a psychological comfort zone in the absence of a more aggressive politics, which the masses would like to see, to begin to signal in that the end of this regime is on the agenda. Anything that seeks to expose the regime, people rally to it, okay, as the fallback position. That's how I see it.
Brother Takumo Ogunse.
Dr.
Yes,
Hines,
go right ahead, Doc.
if I may jump in here again, going beyond even your team of beyond the boundary is so appropriate, because even beyond this here seems to be a strategic. It's a strategy, a bigger strategy than we are seeing. Because do not take this bill that is being proposed now, this bill to be in a vacuum, not connected to all of this.
You're talking about the benefits bill, the
president. The benefits bill,
yes.
Because it has the common interest, as it appears, is to enrich those in power while the poor continues to suffer. Right in the neighborhood of Long Creek, where this farm is, right in the neighborhood, there are folks now. The animals of this farm are getting electricity 24/7. They're even getting air conditioning, and they're getting water 24/7. And the people right next door in the same area or village, they don't have water, they don't have electricity. They have to fetch water from the creek down a hill and back up the hill. So all of that riches, it goes for a lifetime for the people in power, because after retirement, that's what this bill is going to do, is to make sure that the people, even though that's absurd enough, the people have to cover the expenses of maintaining the expenses for an operation such as that farm. That's what that bill is like. So this whole thing about they're not separated. They're all part of this strategy to make sure that the people in power, they're going to be taken care of for lifetime, and at the expense and sacrifice of the poor people. So they don't take this is a to me anyway, it's an overall strategy. So don't take each of those in a vacuum.
Dr. Vincent Adams here, an environmentalist, an engineer, a political activist, former head of the EPA, who negotiated with Exxon when they started here, and who had to confront a lot of the issues that we are dealing with.
Dr. Hines, just to correct you there, when the one thing, you don't negotiate with them, you follow the law and demand that they comply with the law. It's a big difference. That's all we did when in the Granger administration, when we demanded of Exxon that you shall comply with the law, period, or comply with the needs of the people. And guess what they did? They willingly abide. When the Granger administration left office, it was the reverse. The Exxon is demanding, and we're probably going to get to some of those, demanding and controlling what the government should do. So it's not a matter of negotiating, it's a matter of telling them you must comply with the laws and the needs of the people of the country.
Thank you very much. I'm so guided, as the lawyers would say. Brother Takoma, I introduced you earlier as a radical and define radicalism as that which goes to the root. I also referenced earlier that we Guyanese and Caribbean people, we can hear Mother Earth crying better than someone from England or Holland, because we know what crying is, and we know when we are in sync with the earth. And I'm coming to the question here. I assume you heard Mr. Mohammed's expose. And I'm assuming you heard the president response to Mr. Mohammed. What I want you to do for us here is from the radical perspective. Tell us what is below the surface and what is beyond the boundary with this farm gates, this farm story. Talk to us. Talk to us from your radical perspective.
No, I don't know if you need any radical perspective to understand what is playing out there. It's simply, as the president said in response to Mohammed, that Mohammed knew of the existence of the farm. And I have no doubts that they probably met on that farm, and discussed matters when they were friends and when they were buddies. But now that the buddies fall out as a result of the pressures that the Americans have brought on Mohammed, and Mohammed got to fight to save his skin, and he's not satisfied that the Ali regime, his body, is prepared to help save him from the US. They're in this fight for survival. And I think Mohammed's attitude now is okay. You seems prepared to send me to US, extradite me to the US prisons. And I am prepared to do anything in my powers to bring your government down. I think there is where this matter is.
But that's the text. That's the text. Where I want you as the radical is now to take us to the subtext. This thing is not being played out on a farm where the two men are fighting on a farm. It's not being played out in some rum shop. It's played out in the state. Talk to me, Ogun.
Well, it is played out in the national space.
Yeah.
And I think that it's a grim reminder to the country. And I probably should make a step backwards to invoke the remark that Dr. Thomas made this afternoon in the WPA executive when that matter came up briefly. When he made the observation that no democratic society would agree to a bill or an act that gives government leaders unended access to the public purse. And he sees it as the heart of anti-democratic behavior. And he sees it as a clear indication of the callousness of a rapid, arrogant dictatorship. And I think that this is what is confronting us. That what this matter is in the public space is whether, as a country, we are in a position to give true meaning to our so-called democracy. I don't think we got democracy, so-called democracy. And to what extent, as a nation, we prepare to contain political excesses. And I think the drama haven't fully played out. So I have to be a little careful because I can digress a little. I remember running up to the elections when Brother Vince St. Adams was with us. We discussed Linden, and he was assuring me that Mohammed can do extremely well in Linden. And I took the position, well, okay, let me wait and see. We have seen, and I got to say he had a better insight of that reality than me. So I have to be careful that when these things are in the process of being played out, that one give the necessary space to see how things go. So I'm saying that it is not simply a fight between Muhammad and Ali in the strictest of personal relations, but it is also a struggle in the wider society to come to grips with the whole question of how wealth is acquired in Guyana and how wealth is distributed in Guyana and who have access, unprecedented access to wealth.
Vincent,
Yeah.
let's go to Linden because Ogun, I think, raised a very important point which I want to discuss with you and
Yeah.
get your perspective. The history shows that in the decolonization period, that is the period leading up to independence, that the most militant section of the Guyanese working class were the bauxite workers at Linden.
Without question.
And in my research, I found out that between 1965 and 68, there were 45 strikes
Okay.
in Linden.
I don't know the numbers, but I know but there used to be a lot of strikes.
Yes. The wildcat strikes that they used to call them.
Yep.
And that went over into independence, the Ryla strike and all the other strikes in Linden. And we fast forward to the PPP coming to power, and the way in which they were very the way in which they couldn't wait to dismantle the bauxite industry and give it away to outsiders. And we didn't know it at the time that what they were doing was that they were beating back militancy in Linden. So when Ogun and myself, who grew up with that militancy in Linden, when you would tell somebody like us that Linden is going to go in a certain direction, perhaps we didn't see it because we were looking at Linden through the militant working class and what that meant in terms of political decision making on the part of the masses. Did you see that shift as somebody from Linden when bauxite ended? Did you see that shift?
I saw the entire transition, and I remember as a little kid growing up, going to Mackenzie High School, which was the elite high school. When you go to Mackenzie High School, you are part of the elite, and you're gonna get the best job. Guess what were the best jobs? We had a ceiling is to get an office job or to get a job as a teller at the bank. We had no earthly idea that we could become engineers, because when you look at the people who ran the bauxite company, they were all white folks, Canadians, Americans. There weren't any, we used to call them staff when they used to wear a white hat. There was even a gate, Dr. Oginsi and Dr. Hyde, there was a gate right
Doctor,
where
only one doctor you have here. Only one doctor you have here.
Two.
Yourself and David.
Yeah. Anyway, there was a gate right at the Mackenzie. You know, you're right after your party hospital, right to the hotel. There was a gate there where folks that look like us could not enter except for the maids. They're the only ones who could pass the gate. And if you notice, every single house in Awatuka and Richmond Hill area where the staff used to live, the white staff, there's a bottom house where the maids live, and they would go spend 2 weeks, they come out for a day and go back. People like myself. So we had my ambition was to work in an office. And the very day that Burnham, that nationalization came about, and if you recall, he asked for control of the bauxite company, 51%. They wouldn't give it. He said, okay, you leave. And immediately we saw folks like us come in and had to run the company. That was what inspired all of us to become engineers and doctors and that type of profession. So it was an inspiration. The same thing was done in the sugar industry. So that was a major transmission. But what happened moving up to and of course, Linden used to vote maybe 100%, if you will, PNC. But what has happened in recent times, Linden has taken the PNC has taken the Lindeners for granted. I brought, and what Brother Ogensi is saying, that I recognize. When I was in Guyana as head of the EPA, I used to spend almost every weekend in Linden hanging out in the alleys and stuff where I grew up. And the one thing I heard from the younger generation was they used to say, big man, you know something, we're worse off than we were before. No jobs, nothing. So I sensed that, and what they told me was that they're not going to vote for the PPP. However, they're going to stay home. There's no enthusiasm. So what Brother Oginsi is saying, that was what, and I, by the way, I made an attempt to signal that to our politicians, and it was basically without getting into the details, like the Christian World School, for example, where I went, the poorest community in the whole region, in the whole of Lynn, and the Christian World Government School, myself and Robert Carbon attended. When we got into office in 2015, we promised that we were going to build back the school because the school was abandoned because of molds and stuff like that. I had to go up there when we were doing the outreaches and fight like hell. And even when we had an outreach, I told the folks, the meeting broke up with ministers and myself at the meeting down at Christianburg, because we would not get, and kids had to walk all the way from Christianburg way out to Wismar, miles, and walk up hills. And of course, when they were close to home, they would go home for lunch, get their sugar water or whatever it is. Now the parents can't afford to give them lunch money, so a lot of them dropped out of school. And when I was, and even criticizing my own party, the APNU, saying that they should do something about it and build a school as soon as possible, they just ignored it. And do you know what happened? At the end, coming up to the election, when we had the outreach, at the meeting, myself and three other ministers, and when the meeting broke up because of that, I stood up and I said, I will stand with y'all in front and tell you not to go and vote. That was the decision that I had made, that I was going to go with the folks and tell them they will not be voting in the election. And what happened was the party decided, well, okay, we're going to have to do something. The party, when government decided to start building that school a couple of months before the election, you know what happened? The school was completed after the election when the PPP took over. They had a big ceremony of the opening. Not a single person from APNU was invited, and the PPP got all the credit for that school. So we took the Linden community for granted, disregarding all of that history, that commitment of the Linden people. There's no other community in the country that was dedicated. Well, of course, Buxton was another area.
Yeah.
None. But the commitment, but we abandoned them and took them for granted. And I warned them about taking them for granted in that same election that Brother Gunsi was alluded to.
Ogun, I want to come back to you, and I'm still sticking on the radical tradition, because I think Vincent raises an important point, that pragmatic, moderate politics are grounded in electoralism. And electoralism means you counting votes. But the radical tradition is seeing the changes in the society that the electoral tradition doesn't see. And I think Vincent is raising that point there, that the society is changing. Bauxite is no longer there. The militancy is no longer there. The politics is driven by poverty, by neglect, and so on and so forth. But you have to go beneath the surface to see it. And it's the electoral politician doesn't see that. And that's why I'm saying, tell us as someone who comes out of the radical tradition, take us beneath the surface. I know I'm putting you on the spot.
No, you're not really putting me on the spot. You see, I'm struggling with some objective problems, because there is one way in which you could theorize and you could say, what ought to be done or what ought not to be done. And then you got to also watch the objective realities, the limitations, and so forth. Now, I'm going to get more closer to your answer just now. The PPP, from the time they came to power in 92 or 93,
92.
92, they have had a plan to destroy Linden
Yeah.
and to
Yeah.
take Linden away from the PNC both as an electoral force and as a general political force. And what they do is the radio station, the TV station. It was a time where TV have suffered, and Linden was the only part of the country a government still deliberately deny an important population for umpteen years the right to open television when the rest of the country can have it, and keep them with just a government television. Indoctrination. And the opposition failed to stop it. You see, politics is action and reaction. The government has tools as a government to prosecute its case. The opposition don't have the same kind of tools. But the opposition have to use whatever tools it have at its disposal, okay, to stop excesses of the government. And the PNC and ACNU should have long brought that thing to an end. You see, while the young generation, as I keep making the point, we got to be realistic, and as David made the point, things change. You have a generation of African people we have never, as a political leadership, thrown them into any serious political struggle. None whatsoever. Check it. And this is what we call the Jagdeo generation. Generation who born when the PP and Jagdeo come into power. You can't have in any country, any part of the world, man, when a generation by its own leadership, okay, is prevented from engaging into struggle and to give meaning to the politics, you get what we eventually have. So yes, part of it is PPP, oppression, repression, the fact that they go in the community with the money, they build up certain elements in the community and promote them as the model, and they impoverish the entire community. So you have a whole army of deprived people and semi-hungry people who will behave in a certain way, where they respond not to money, just to the notion of money and betterment. Mohammed didn't bring no money to get them 1,070-something black people who vote for them. But they responded to the notion that somehow voting for him will deal with the poverty and the objective problems and defeat the PPP. So in politics, we have to understand that while, yes, generation change, but the political craft of activists and leaders is to study what are the forces that are shifting and changing the dynamics. And when we understand that, what is the countermeasures that we got to take? For example, we all agree that social media have demonstrated, in as far as elections goes in Guyana, it can make a difference. But social media haven't demonstrated to me yet that it is able to mobilize a massive public protest, okay, against this government. No social force in this country have been able to use social media as a mobilizing instrument as in other countries for a significant protest. But we can't deny that social media have make its stamp upon electoral politics, which is the easier kind of politics. It's just once you win the mind, all I gotta go down cross the X. It's story done. I don't play my role. And I'm saying that we, the practitioners of politics, we got to study, recognize the change, but we have to study the elements that are influencing the change and the direction the change is going and how to reverse it.
Doc,
And I think here is where the opposition is weak. The opposition in this country, I don't think is weak in terms of educating its people on the excesses of the government. I think Guyanese are probably the most educated people in the Caribbean on the domestic problems. But on the other hand, there's the most docile in terms of fighting back. That is, and it wasn't so. Then you got to ask yourself why it becomes so.
Doctor?
And that is the challenge in front of us.
Yeah, I never could help myself going back to that nationalization of bauxite, because that was, like I said before, that was what inspired people like myself and yourself and Brother Ogunsi and many others to let us believe that we could achieve. Look, I think if you move forward, and because we're going backwards right now as a nation, if you move forward today, the CXC results came out, folks, and I looked at the list. They published a list of 159 top performers at the CXC. Do you know, out of that 159, how many was from Linden? I think it's about 6 primary schools. Six. Do you know, compared or in contrast, Lenora, one school at Lenora had 9. One school at Success had 19. Think about it. Linden, 6 from probably 6 schools. Lenora had 9 from one school, and Success had 19. Could you imagine, if you think it's bad now, what is the future of Guyana in terms of one race versus the other, and in terms of opportunities, and who is going to be controlling the country forever, and who is going to be left behind? That is what we need to be focusing on here, and in terms of politics. And this is where the opposition needs to come in and show its strength. It's not that the opposition doesn't have strength, but it's how do you impose that strength to make sure that you mobilize. Because what has happened here, people are seeing, nobody's going to go there by themselves. If they're not getting the kind of leadership to go there and fight with them, nobody's going to stick the neck out, and then they're going to left hanging. So if there's no movement or that people can believe in and trust to say, well, this is going to stand behind me, and we're going to be able to mobilize. But right now, there's no mobilization. So that is why people are drifting. People are saying, here, we've got to survive. And if we cannot, if I don't see any survival path with an opposition that appears to be weak, I'm going to go, for survival. It's the reality of life.
And doctor, when I say I'm going to buy you 3 drinks, that's just 1 drink. and I tell you why. And I want to join with you in congratulating all those students who have
absolutely.
But you see where you went? You went into the meat of the thing, the essence of the thing. One school in one community got 19. And one all big township got 6. And it's the unwillingness of our spokespersons, our commentators, to acknowledge these realities. We run away from them. You don't got to say race. You don't got to use race. Leave that to me. I don't know. But as you put it there, communities, one community, 19. What it says, your outcome is what you put in. No, sir?
Yep.
It means that you're putting in more in some communities than you're putting in other communities. And I'm telling you, my brothers, if young black people look at a Guyana where the president is of one race, the chief justice is of the same race, the head of the army is the same race, The private sector is of the same race. They're not looking to education because they are not seeing their educated people in positions of authority. And so their relationship to education, you made that point, that what nationalization did for an entire generation, whatever their political views, because they could see their own in charge. They may disagree. And Lyndon voted solidly for the PNC, but when it came to their working class interests, they disagreed with the PNC and work it out and so forth. So what you had there was a people confronting what the Marxists will say their own contradictions in the society, but they confronted it. We live in an era where the Indian people are not confronting the contradictions with the PPP. We like to say Indians are suffering, and I'm sure Indians will suck their teeth, because they say we know we're suffering, and they know black people tell me that. But we have worked out our contradictions inside. We are asking, confront the PPP, is that in our ethnic interest? And the answer is no. Although the PPP, from a class standpoint, is assaulting the Indian community, the Indian community is asking, do we confront the Indian regime? And the answer is no.
No, yeah.
And Vincent, I can tell you, Indian radicals who risk their lives fighting Burnham, those Indian radicals today are not risking their lives to fight the PPP.
Yep.
And we in the black community continue with a certain kind of rhetoric, as if we are making excuses, and we always worry about how we gonna look, you know. And I think part of that is that's what I'm saying. I am telling you, our political leaders didn't go where you go there just now. You see how quick? Maybe it's the scientist in you. You know, observing, because it says scientists observe, right? And you went straight there. I am telling you, Vincent Adams and Takubu Nkonse, 99% of our political leaders won't go there. You know what they will say? Congratulations to our students who did well.
Yeah.
Ogunse coming by.
I think you're quite right, because this country doesn't want to face the reality and confront us. And I've been saying it, and that's why sometimes I get weary saying it, because I think after time, you know, we look like, you know, we look like paper tigers. Poor rhetoric. And as a political leadership, we don't seem to be able to work out ways to deliver blows to this government. And the PPP is getting a fair, easy ride. And I listened to African leadership, you know, for quite a while, very carefully to them. And I am convinced that we have a potentially reckless leadership that is prepared to stick to winner, take all politics, in spite of the clear indications that we cannot win elections easily. I gonna concede to them that there's a possibility that we could win, but it's a far outside possibility. And I am a gambler with me people, future and the future young generations. And whatever is the whatever governance arrangement we struck at independence, it has failed in the last 60 years or 70 years independence. And it is time for us as an African community to say we withdraw our support from the historical, independence construct, and we want a new construct of governance. And we are prepared to fight for the will be life. And I'm telling you, the day the African leadership take that position, That alone will radically change the whole political environment and engagement in the country without firing one shot. You don't got to fire one shot. But once we leadership and the community, we mobilize the leadership of the community, we come to that position. Guyana is not the same.
You know,
Let me quickly,
yes, come in, doctor.
quickly,
Because coming to you. Come in.
And you know, this here, and I cannot overemphasize, and our brother Ogunsi brought it up initially, and he just mentioned it again. There, we talk about independence, and there's no independence without democracy. Okay. And as you recall, Doctor, and because you were at that symposium that I was at several weeks ago,
yes,
and I said, and again, getting back to beyond the boundary, you're going to have elections and all this kinds of stuff. But beyond the boundary, there is no democracy when you've got the same, because democracy has three pillars, independent pillars: the legislative branch, the executive branch, and the judicial branch. The executive branch and the legislative branch are all one and the same. The same people who are in the executive branch is the same people who are in the legislative branch. So and then of course they've got influence even on the judiciary. But I'm going to leave that aside, assuming But you cannot have democracy when they're controlling. And a good example, we saw it when they use. Because the same people in the executive branch, they're making the proposal as to what they want. Look, recently they come to Parliament and said they just held Parliament to approve a budget. I mean, additional money. But
yes,
we all know that was just to make it official, because they had the votes. It's the same set of people, the same ministers make up the legislative branch. That's not democracy. It was never intended for that. You're a political scientist much farther than I've ever been. But the point is, that was never the intention. But this government, they've chosen this administration to abuse what is there. So I'm on board. We need to, this whole constitution reform needs to have a very serious look. But I don't think, again, they're controlling that. So I don't know how far we're going to get. But these are the kinds of things that we need to be pushing for. Because right now we do not have a democracy with the executive branch and the legislative branch being one and the same.
Being one and the same. And
I would say we don't need constitutional reform. We passed that. We need constitutional change. And we need constitutional. Africans have to understand. We don't play this demo. We play a democratic game that was designed by Europeans to divide and rule and to keep we under domination. We got to be sensible enough to know when a political instrument is useful and when it is not useful. And nobody could tell me that over the last 60 or 70 years, the so-called democratic exercise really improved anything in Guyana in terms of democracy and so forth and so forth. And I'm saying we, as an African community, there has to be an African politics, probably with some difference from the national politics. The national politics will be influenced in the main by whatever consensus the country could find as a nation. But while you're fighting for that consensus, individual ethnic groups, Africans and Amerindians, got to look exactly at what is happening in this country and to project their mind to the future. And I know if one or two more election cycles, African is out of political power, you can't catch up economically in this country. You'll be doomed. We doomed the future generation to exactly what the PPP is preparing for us. Domination. And I, as an African leader, this generation ain't going down with them.
But I know, and Ogunsi, that second not cutting you. What you just said there, the common entrance result is a precursor, or CXC is a precursor to exactly what you're saying.
Yes, both the common entrance, the way African votes, the delinquency and everything in the society is the consequence of domination.
Yeah.
I don't know. You got to be political scientist to know that. And that is what domination. Watch. In Palestine, Israel reduced Palestine to a point where Palestinian youths know that the Israeli soldiers is shooting them. And they will go and try to beg for food from the Israeli soldier hand, and they give them the food and shoot them. That's what domination do to the human being. So once political domination becomes very profound, it warps the human character. And the human being stop behaving as a logical human being. And this is what's facing us not in such a graphic way as in Palestine, but the undercurrents are the same. The more, and the PP have read it correctly, the more you impoverish the public servants, the more you impoverish the police and the army, the more you dominate all the important heights in the economy, as David rightly point out, the people of your own kind. You're destroying psychologically the African and the Amerindian.
Yes.
And the African leaders got to understand the way to fight that. It's not going wrong telling people you're going to win elections that you might be able to win in 20 years from now. It's mobilizing your people with a clear political program. This is the problem, is governance. We want a change in governance, and we're going to fight you over it. We will go back to democratic elections after we fix this constitution. We change it.
Yes.
So that where we don't vote race, where we don't mobilize partisan, the constitution says we got to sit down together here and run this place with the call Guyana.
And spend the money.
And spend the money.
Spend the money.
That's where we there. I see sometimes I don't even like to discuss them, this stupidness about farm and this and that.
Yeah, yeah.
Even I know we have to do it.
Yeah.
But I think we've given the PPP such a big pass.
Yeah. Yeah.
That I don't know.
Look, I got a call today, a strange number. I don't normally answer strange number, but I answer it. And the person at the other end of the line said, Dr. Hines, well, you don't know me. I search up and down, and I finally, one of my colleagues at UG finally got your number for me. I said, okay. And the lady said, that times why you shame me so much? Well, I get frightened because I said, what kind of trouble are they in now? Long story short, she said she voted AFC in 2011, and she voted APNU AFC after then. And she was convinced, and still is convinced, that crossover vote is essential. And she used to get vexed with me when I pour in cold water and crossover vote, until I uttered, matter of factly, a couple of days ago, that the crossover vote that the AFC brought and put us in power is the same crossover vote overthrow we, because Sharon Das represented the crossover vote and overthrow we. And she said that thing struck her, and she felt, because I said it matter of factly, I wasn't passionate, and so on. I just said it matter of factly. So the thing get even me to think, it's the complexity of our society. The crossover vote put us in power. AFC brought that crossover vote and put us in power. And the crossover vote overthrew we, but we never had a conversation about it. Right? And that is what I told the sister. I said, you know why I said, we never had a conversation about it, and you're right. I didn't even raise it as a conversation. I raised it as a matter of fact observation, right? But it's that lack of conversation. And we get caught up in these concepts, and we throw them around and they sound nice. And we don't go beneath the surface and really see what's going on. And that's why I said, Vincent, I will buy you 6 drinks. Because you went beyond congratulations and took us to a place that we are running away from. Your engineers your entrepreneurs, your university teachers. The elites are going to come from those 150 children that you say there.
Yep.
And look at the face of those people. This is not about Indians and Batakan Indians, this is about facing the reality. And it's frightening. It is frightening. Look, in me village, got a call a couple nights ago. David, what you doing? I said, well, they're relaxing. You're what happened? I said, what happened? Big shooting up at Brush Dam. Two little boys from Boxing died. And I go down to the part of the village at a funeral and never see so many young people, 11. I said, where these people come from? They tell me they're born right there. The birth rate in that part of the village is very high. And those young people are ghettoized in that space at Friendship Back Dam side. And so the bleeding is as a result of that ghettoization, which we as politicians don't see. I mean, you live in Buxton, and that's your ghetto. You have no calling there physically, right? So in your physical eyes don't see it. You're aware that it's there. You're aware of the problems that are there. But in a sense, you're disconnected. Can you live at line side? Or you live at front side?
Yep.
And those are the things we are confronting in our communities. And we are not going to see those things when we're ready to come vote in 2030. We're going to go down there to come the vote. But we don't see there today how the ghettoization of those young people back there is really destroying our future. Because survival means that they're not confronting. Those young people don't feel that they have to deal with the problems, because they themselves are victims of the problems. And it comes down to survival. And our politics, and I'm saying this in support of you, Ogun, that our politics have to confront that reality. There's a way in which our Indian brothers and Indian sister leaders don't have to confront that reality. They don't have to. So when we hear the rhetoric where black people and Indian people are suffering, it sends a wrong message. Indian people are suffering differently because of where they're located, their proximity in a theoretical way to power.
And they could stop the suffering tomorrow if they choose to.
Those people don't have to wake up every day and hear gunshot. I remember in 2002, I was in Walmart a couple weeks ago, and a chap came up to me and he said, Dr. Hines, you remember me? I said, but I know. He took off his spectacle. I said, still can't remember you. He said, you teach me at ASU, Arizona State. I said, oh, how long? He said, 2002 was my first year as an undergraduate. He said, I came from the hood. And I remember myself and another female student telling the class that it doesn't know about our reality. And we ask you and the class, if you ever had to go to sleep at night and the last thing you hear is gunshot, and you wake up in the morning and the first thing you hear is gunshot. I said, boy, you turned big. He's American, so he didn't understand. So I had to tell him, but you think? He said, yes, he's a manager now at Walmart. And because of education, he was able to move out of the hood. But he said, my brother got shot. My cousin got shot. My sister's in the penitentiary. He managed to get out of the ghetto because he had a chance to go to university. And it struck me that it is that reality that we have to deal with as political leaders, and we don't deal with it. Partly because our gaze doesn't allow us to do it. We do the conventional politics. And the conventional politics is that we have to look good, we don't get beat up, we don't get accused, we don't this, and so on. And while we are doing that, the very base that we have to go to electorally is disintegrating in front of our very faces. And when they go and make crazy decisions, we end up having to criticize them and so forth. So I agree with you all. The society is as such, and we have to deal with the society as it is. And not this make-believe place that what democracy? What democracy? The Speaker of the National Assembly is of one ethnic group. The opposition is of one ethnic group. I am not saying that Indian people must not be represented. But when Burnham was in power, people like myself and Ogun, we were enraged, morally and otherwise, by the Africanization of the state. And people are saying we must not be enraged with Indianization of the state today. We fought the Africanization of the state. And today we are confronted in the most vulgar way. Whatever you say about Burnham, at least he attempted some kind of ethnic balance. All them Indian holiday come from the PNC. I used to wait when PNC get Congress to listen to Kami Ramsarup talk, because you talk like when you put butter on add frying pan, most sweet. What I'm saying, they were always, and I didn't get the sense that Ramsarup was a window dresser. I think his heart was in the thing, and so on. The point I'm making is that the PNC at least made attempts at a kind of representation at the top that is genuine or genuine. These chaps that we have in power today are not making any attempt in that direction. The obscene Indianization of the state, and it's not just the Indianization of the state, it's what it leads to. The president said yesterday, they got hundreds more farms like you own. And he doesn't know what he's telling us. Right? And the farms are in the interior, we can't see them. And those farms represent a kind of economic power that we don't see. And so this society is unraveling before our faces, and our leaders are not addressing it. That is the frustration. I think our leaders are not addressing. When we took power in 2015, Jack York promised us that there will not be an easy ride. He promised us. And there was never an easy ride. It was during that time that Jack York said explicitly, the PPP is an Indian party. He has power now, he's not going to say that now. The point I'm making, there are times when you have to use a certain kind of rhetoric. And Jack York appealed to Indian sensitivities and took back power from us. And we are out of power, and we are not addressing our people's sensitivities. And that's what frustrates me. Doctor?
Yes. Let me, I need to, I'm working for an additional three drinks here. Because even going forward, let me tell you something. This CXC results here, it means a lot, because this here is the future, and you not only touch, you laid the groundwork. It is about the foundation for the future. The three of us, we've lived our life. We've accomplished, and now we're seeing things going in the opposite direction as to the opportunities that we got, even without resources, and the opportunities were provided. And Guyana will never achieve or realize its full potential if we do not have racial and opportunity equity. I don't like use equality. It's about equity.
Equity.
If we do not have race, we will never realize our potential. Now, going back to that 159 of the list of the 159, the top 20 got perfect scores. All 20 are going to be going to Queen's College, Dr. Hines. So guess out of that 20, there's one black little girl in that 20. All the others, you know where they're from. Out of the top 20 that are going to be going to QC. Now, again, I totally congratulate these young kids. As a matter of fact, I'll be willing, and I'm sure that the two of you would be willing to offer whatever help you can, even if it's to mentor them, these 20. So it has nothing to do with them. But there's something wrong. And let me add to this here, Dr. Hines. In Linden, and we've talked about this in your program, in Linden, predominantly black community, there's a board called the Board of Guardians that determine the little help that poor people get. That board has 8 members. In Linden, would you believe all 8 members are Indians? All 8 members are Indians. And the first thing they did when they got there, they took, I think, like 800 kids and families that are destitute. They took them off of the roll to get, I think it's like $20,000 a month or something. In Linden, folks, all 8 members of that Board of Guardians are Indians in Linden. That's what we're dealing with here.
Yeah. And Vincent, I happen to know the story of one of the students from Linden who is going to go to Queen's College. And I'm telling you, the mother of that child, I used to be so sorry. That lady got up at 4 o'clock in the morning. She got to drive the little girl to lesson first, then to school, then pick her up in the afternoon to another lesson. So the student is going to Queen's College, but the sacrifices that mother made, that mother was in a position to make those sacrifices. Other mothers weren't in the same position. And I'm telling you, sometimes I cry, Vincent, when I see what our people have to go through. And Indians are coming up to me and telling me, Dr. Hines, it's so easy to make money in Guyana. It's so easy to become rich in Guyana. And I believe them. I believe them. Because it's easy for some people to become rich. The president said yesterday, I have done personal favors. He didn't say who did a favor for. But I know who he was talking about.
Yeah.
And that when the time comes, this country will be surprised to know the favors I did. He didn't know. He didn't know what he's saying. He didn't know what he's saying. Something profound that we have been struggling to say, and he said for us. The way in which those people have used the state, if they were using their own resources, the state. We know Burnham gets some cost for the socialist thing, and he didn't create an entrepreneurial class. We know he gets cost of that. But he made the choice that he's going to concentrate on the bottom, moving up, so that you and me and Ogun could move up. Whether he was right in not concentrating on the top, history will determine that. These people are concentrating on the super top. And they're doing it deliberately. Deliberately. It's the obscenity is chilling. I don't know. Ogunse, help me.
Well, I mean, it is clear. I mean, let me go back to Linden. It is not by accident the two prime ministers that the PPP had in recent time came from Linden.
Yes.
The PPP have targeted Linden for years as one of the areas that they're going to break the back of the PNC, and by extension the African community, corrupt and recruit elements from them for the window dressing. Not by accident. You see, PPP is very clear and deliberate in the policies. As you said, it's not by accident they keep the bauxite industry closed as long as they kept it. It's not by accident they deny them access to the television when every other part of the country had access to television. There's a clear, well worked out political and racial domineering strategies of the PPP. And I don't know, you got to be a political scientist to see it. When Granger and his soldiers came into the political process, the PPP and Jack Dio was cussing it out and saying we Latin Americanizing this situation, bringing the military into civilian politics. And the next election, what do? Look for black military from Linden and make him prime minister. Because they work out that Granger magic wasn't Granger. Granger magic to the extent that we're going to personalize it. I know these things are wider in the individuals, but to the extent that we're going to personalize it, Granger himself didn't mean much. It's the fact that Granger had the military people with him.
Yeah.
And this signal to the African base, having get so many blows by the PPP and the Phantom and so, we got the answer now. We military with me. And black people respond to the elections like a boss.
But to come
You
up and
got
say,
to understand the politics of engagement. So people read into Granger intervention in politics that we got the answer to PPP bullyism. And it led black people. I know in the election, I grew up coming in East River Station, breathless. I come for Madia for vote. The first time I life for vote, but I got for vote in this election. Young woman. But we got to analyze what was the magic. Wasn't Mr. Granger? Not black people know Granger politics. Even Granger himself probably didn't know you want politics. But what black people understood, he's a military man and he got the military buys with him. And the PPP understood that. That is why in next election, they're going to get the black military man.
The black military man. Talk to us, oh gun say, talk to us. You don't drink. I gotta get some cheese and nut and them kind of thing for you because you don't drink.
So we got to understand there's different levels of politics. There's the politics of the newspaper and the television, but the concrete in-house statics and strategy is where the real politics of parties is played out. And the PPPs have been beating us at that. Because they're clear about power. You believe the PP lose power tomorrow? The PP, everybody said by chance. Somehow power fall back in black people's hand. You think PP and Jack Doga you promise to say they want power sharing? I tell you, Jack does he want power sharing, situation change. That's politics about politics is about. If Jack find himself, he wake up a black military take over the country. Jack run to all of the world and say they want power sharing. and he's quite right. That is what effective politics is about.
Hey.
Given the money that we deal with the island now, why risk being excluded 100%? And our leaders are telling us we must remain excluded and commit ourselves to when we take our politics. Okay, for the next election, when we got some clear indications that elections from here onwards is not elections, it's a question of who got more money than the others. We have passed, as Clive Thomas had told us many months before the elections. He said Guyana have reached a point when people begin to sell the votes. There's no turning back for the country. And it's the worst thing could happen in a democratic society. And we have lived to see it. And I'm telling you that given the African or the weakness in the economy I don't know where the Africans going to find money to engage in any serious election battle. Given the demographics that is changing with all of these Venezuelans and people bringing also people from Asia and all kinds of things, and fixing the demographics. You know, I don't know. You could tell me that any African leader could watch me face and tell me that he believes that he gonna win the next elections in a hurry in this country, and that black people must put all with faith in elections. I said no. We have our only last stand is invest in the Constitution, change the Constitution to a power sharing Constitution where we don't vote race, where we don't vote in a partisan way, where we don't spend money and corrupt the place. The Constitution says, I just got to sit down there and run this country together. That is the solution. Don't gamble with the future of black people and African people and American people, generation. And that is what we reach at this point where our political leaders are gambling. And I would say for their own selfishness. Because I can't see nothing beneficiary for the community. I could see people personal interests. They want to be presidents. They want, to hold power as a dominant party. And they're rather to carry down the constituents, and by extension, they carry down the country. And the biggest danger, I'm going to stop here, David, the biggest danger facing this country is that we're going to have a generation of young people who ain't got the political experience like this generation. This is the last generation to save Guyana. If we can't save Guyana now, Guyana will not be saved. The younger generations will slaughter African and Indians and Amerindians will be manipulated by external forces as the oil and then resources in this country become more open up for development. And as more and more white people come in the country, we're going to slaughter one another. That is what we pass it down to the younger generation. And I want this to regard me as being different. If it's me alone got to be different, it must regard me as being different.
I there with you.
I know you, David.
Look, Ogunse, in 1961, your mentor, Sidney King, saw the same thing that you are saying, that we had reached the point in 1961 that we were going to slaughter each other, and he put the same formula you put in, joint premiership, on the table. And both the major parties, in fact, the PNC, expel him from the party. And what happened? We slaughtered each other for 4 years. History as a way of coming back and pointing its finger in our face. That's where we are. Doctor, I understand that you were able to enlist your friends to put you in an helicopter and fly you offshore to examine the gas to shore pipeline. And you saw some things there that you have to bring to our attention. Talk to us.
Yeah, everything is virtual. Thanks to technology. but this here is, you talk about something that is, but it's not surprising, Dr. Hines. On this show and many other shows, we've discussed the incompetence and the impotency of this government. Imagine, and what the opposition leader has revealed. So the opposition leader went out there. There's that gas pipeline that is coming. I think it's 100 and something miles of gas pipeline that runs along the shore, comes to this gas to energy project. It has ruptured. And it ruptured in the shallow waters. I think it's 20 to 30 feet deep in the shallow water. Now, that same pipeline, in the deeper part, it runs over a mile deep onto the ocean bed where there's no technology to detect leaks and stuff like that. Now, right now, the pipeline is inactive. It's filled with nitrogen, fortunately. However, so the rupture occurred in the shallow water. And according to the leader of the opposition, because of course that's the one good thing that he's been in bed with them, because now he's got his inside sources. That thing had ruptured for 3 months. For 3 months. And then when it was brought to the attention of the minister Barrett Bar said, no, nothing of the sort has happened yesterday. He said nothing of the sort in the newspapers. And then when they caught themselves, they went out there. I could not believe it. They said, well, it's just a slight anomaly. Well, let me tell you something, folks. Slight anomaly. This is the most disgusting statement that I've ever heard coming from a government that is supposed to be providing oversight. This here is the worst precursor that you could have. We're lucky that it has nitrogen in it, because if it can rupture with nitrogen, could you imagine if we had real natural gas in that pipeline? And on top of that, could you imagine if it had ruptured in the deep waters rather than at 30 feet? Because natural gas is very toxic to fish life. It was only, I think, in 2024, we had a big fire. I don't know if you've ever seen a fire on top of the water. The same exact thing happened in offshore Mexico. I think it was Pemex. And I think the leader of the opposition attached that video where the ocean was on fire. With all the gas that is bubbling, the ocean was on fire. And the same thing can happen here. Besides all of that miles of gas that comes up and dissipates throughout the water would damage fish life and the whole ecology with that natural gas. So those are the kinds of things. And then you do not even have an environmental impact assessment. You do not even have an emergency response plan, as far as I know. So, but here is this people saying, well, it's just an anomaly. This is the most irresponsible statement that I've ever heard. Instead of taking it seriously, I got a call today from one of the news outlets, and the question was, okay, what would you have done? Well, heck, I know what I would have done, because when I was there, Exxon had to buy, like I said before, by what we wanted. You remember the parent company guarantee and everything we had in place? When this government went into office, Exxon took control of this government. Exxon is running this government, especially when it comes to environmental issues. Exxon files, let me remind folks, the Exxon files at the EPA have been removed from the audit, over 2,000 operation files. And it's kept under lock and key in the executive director's office, separate from everybody else's files. Exxon is there's not a single person in the EPA who has had 1 hour, maybe not even a minute of training in petroleum management. None, zero. And what we had done in the administration was we established, work with the World Bank to establish a petroleum unit with high-powered, a 36-member unit with high-powered petroleum engineers and scientists, etc., to oversee what is going on, and to have people on those ships 24/7. So if something like this happened, they would have known immediately. That's exactly what we do with democratic and good governance, such as the United States. We don't have that. The other thing that we did at EPA was to establish what we call a study leave policy, where we sponsored employees to go and study petroleum engineering and everything else, and then you have to come back and work for 5 years. And then we established, I was the one who was put in responsible for developing the petroleum engineering department at UG in conjunction with the UWI and the University of Trinidad and Tobago. We would have been turning out graduates in petroleum engineering from a 2-year degree right through to a PhD today to manage all of that. This government just canceled when we left office. And so that is why we're reaping what we saw here. As they say, the chickens are coming home to roost. That's exactly what we're seeing here. We have no competence. And for them to come out and say this here is an anomaly, it shows the ignorance. But you know who suffered? It's the people one day. Because if this pipe can rupture here, it can rupture in the deep oceans. And then if they cannot even repair a pipe that is, 20 feet below the water level in 3 months, how the hell are they going to repair it when it's deep down in the ocean, a mile or two deep into the ocean? That's what it's incompetence again, Dr. Hines.
Vincent Adams here making the linkage between incompetence and authoritarianism, that they're linked. The more democratic a society is, the better the chances of oversight, and oversight would correct incompetence. The more authoritarian the regime is, less oversight, and it encourages incompetence. Sisters and brothers, good evening to you, Raquel Gentle. Raki, good evening to you. I haven't seen you for a long time. You give up on Buxton. You're there in Brooklyn, and you're enjoying yourself. But at least you're on air tonight. Good evening to you, Audrey Brown. Yes, Audrey Brown, we just teach, and that's why you're here. I love that. Because we got to keep watch. We got to keep watch. Our backs against the wall. It is. Our backs are against the wall. But Jesse Jackson's exhortation, keep hope alive. We got to do that. Because this thing is not sustainable. And the thing about when pipe bust, as we're going to say, when pipe bust, Martin Carter got it right. All of us will be consumed by it. And that is why we have to work assiduously to prevent the pipe from bursting a certain way. And our generation, this generation here, have that responsibility. And that's why we are at it. We are old men now. We're old men now. But, you know, Bob Marley didn't leave school to do what he did with a microphone in hand, for us to squander the space that he created for us. I go back to Kanai. The Indian becoming West Indian, just as the African became West Indian, and the Amerindian became West Indian. And we invest in Guyana and Suriname and Trinidad and Tobago and St. Lucia and St. Kitts. We invested heavily for us to get here. And we have a one-time chance to deal with the obscene poverty that has visited itself on us historically. Our foreparents didn't leave Africa impoverished. The poverty started here on the sugar plantation. As Walter Rodney so ably said, so graphically said, how Europe underdeveloped Africa. That Africa, by the standards of the 13th and 14th century, was highly developed. Technology, transportation, agriculture, the equitability of the society where women owned wealth more than man. That's where we came from. And we came here and we survived genocide after genocide. And today we are facing genocide by another name, but the essence remains the same. Wake up. Wake up. Wake up, Guyanese. Wake up, African. Wake up, Amerindian. And if you all wake up, Indian people gonna be forced to wake up. That's how it works. That's how it goes. We just can't go on this way, the mighty explainer. We just cannot go on this way. We just cannot go on this way. Takumo Gunse, leave us with some words of wisdom, and then Doc will close us out.
Well, my final words is simple. There is no doubt that Guyana have reached a crossroads. There is no doubt that Africans and Amerindians are facing domination, which is not by accident, which is a well-planned strategy being implemented by the PPP, it is clear to me that the election consensus that we arrive, that the governance consensus that we arrive at independence have outlived, if it had any usefulness, it would have outlived that usefulness. And the country requires a change in the governance system. It is clear to me that the PPP will not agree to a change of governance, which they ought not to agree to. Nobody got power is agree to nothing just so because you say you want it. I mean, I got to be very practical. But we could force them to agree. And that is how we have to see it as an African people and have to see it as an opposition. We don't expect the government with power and all less money because you say you want power sharing. Wake up and say, all right, I'm going to share this thing with you. If it don't work, so. And if you believe, so, that that's how it is work, then they got the right to hold on to the power. But the world have demonstrated, history has demonstrated, the way you change oppressive system is that those who are oppressed has to make the demand and fight and force the oppressor to change. And in Guyana, this is where we are. So the ball is in African people's hand and Amerindian people's hand. Our Indian brothers and sisters are prisoners of the PPP domination and influence. And I think it's unreasonable in the context of the historical conditioning to expect them to be the vanguard of any assault to change against the PPP. It is unreasonable to expect the Amerindians, who are unfortunately by history locked in the interland and their activism, okay, at this point is restricted by those objective conditions. The ball is in the African hand and the African court. Guyana will either go forward to something better, depending on what we do. Our generations will either get a better deal with the oil money and everything, depends upon what we, this generation of African leadership, do. And if we fail to liberate our people, history will condemn us as being responsible for the African enslavement. There is no people who have all the guns of the state in their hand has a right to claim that they're under domination. They're dominating yourself. That is my closing remarks.
Fighting words there, as usual, from Takuma Ogunse. Doctor, your closing thoughts.
Well, I cannot overemphasize what a significant day today is in terms of the, simple as it is, just CXC results. It should send a signal, and hopefully the politicians from the opposition and the leadership of this country and the government of this country, I hope that they're going to pay attention. I want to congratulate all of these kids, and like I said before, and I'm sure that you folks would volunteer to do whatever we can to help them succeed. But when you look, I think it sends a signal that we ought to pay attention. There's something wrong with the system, not the kids. There's something wrong with the system in terms of opportunity, fair and equitable opportunity for all, or else this country is going to continue to be divided along that line. When you have the top 20 kids who are going to be going to Queen's College, one of them is Black and the rest are predominantly Indian. There is something wrong with the system. These kids are bright kids. Of course, they took full advantage of the opportunity they got, and I congratulate them sincerely. Now, the other thing, getting back to another thing that came out yesterday, Dr. Hines and Brother Okenzie, and all the things that we've been talking about, we just talked about the ruptured pipeline. I also did this week, another big thing in the news this week was the watering.
You have to mute something there.
Was the water in Guyana. Every single person in Guyana sees that water that is grumsy and dirty and like brown coffee. And the government of Guyana came out and said the water is okay. That's what they're telling people. Just at the pipeline, they're saying, oh, that's not a big deal. Even though you're seeing everything bubbling up, the pipe is ruptured. they're telling people to drink that water. So when I looked at the results, folks, it was 630 times below the standard that it established for safe drinking water standard. 630 times. And they want you to drink it. And with stuff that it could cause disease, all kinds of and they're telling you to drink it, even though, and I bet you that none of them are drinking it. So but most importantly, what all of that adds up to, Dr. Hines, and you could appreciate it, Yale University, Yale and Columbia, two of the elite universities in the whole world, not only in the US, we call them the Ivy League schools. And you understand better than it what that means. They came up, I think it's an annual report. They look at every single country, 177 countries, and rank them in environmental stewardship and performance. They come up with an index. Do you know where Guyana was ranked out of that 107? 151. They were ranked 151st place out of 177 with a score, I think, of 30. Now, you're a professor. I mean, what do you give your student when they get a score of 30?
Fail minus.
That's what Guyana get. And they're 10 places below Haiti.
Wow.
To put things into perspective. So when they come out and say, well, we're improving the environment, and you and people like you and I are trying to rebut that kind of stuff. Here it is. We're getting a verification that what we are saying is true, and what they're saying is just propaganda. Pay attention, 154th place out of
10 places below Haiti.
10 places below Haiti. That's where we stand with environmental governance and our performance. That's where we stand. And it came out from Yale University, probably the top school in the whole world, not only in the US, and Columbia University.
Takumo Gunsi, remember 50 years ago, our then leading spokesperson, Walter Rodney, said one of his fears was the Haitianization of Guyana. Oh, God. Doctor, 10 places behind Haiti.
10 places behind Haiti.
Walter Rodney talked about that in the 1970s. And we are doing so in the midst of plenty.
Yep.
Jesus Christ.
But here's the other thing. Here, in terms of indicators, guess what the report says? The report says that the GDP should be a reflection of the governance. It has an impact on the index.
Yes.
And we're moving in the opposite direction. GDP saying, according to the normal trends, if you have a higher GDP, you should perform higher in terms of the performance index. We're doing the complete opposite. The complete opposite. We got the highest GDP and the worst index.
Dr. Vincent Adams, my brother, thank you very much. I got 6 drinks for you. Tomorrow at the stadium, I think it's the first one day. It's tomorrow, yes. The first one day at the stadium tomorrow. And then I'll see you on Sunday. You will get your first installment of the drink. But West Indies got win first. If they don't win, you can. I'm going to postpone your drink.
That's right. Yeah.
Takuma, my brother, thank you so much. Thank you so much. We are a society that is complex. And it has to be. And I think we become a living society when the elements that make up the complexity are able to bring to bear a kind of visitation on the larger society. And I think we have attempted to do that here tonight. An environmentalist, engineer, and a market vendor, and I'm deliberately saying that, meeting beyond the boundary. Because the experience beyond the boundary brings the environmentalist and the market vendor together in a space that assaults both of them. And so we move to another weekend. We take a breather because the monster never sleeps. We come back tomorrow, we come back Sunday, and we come back Monday to push this society to a place where it confronts itself. Good night, my brothers.
Good night.
Good night to you and your viewers.
I thank you all and I love you all. And we can continue to do this until we straighten the crooked highways and we silence those who scream with wealth, those who are washed in illicit wealth. The Mighty Sparrow sings about good citizens. Good citizens are bad citizens in Guyana.